Okay. I think we're good now. I think we're okay. Really, I'm really hoping we're good. We'll see. What's up though, folks? How you doing? Welcome. I don't see any dropped frames or anything like that, so I think we might be okay. Yo, I see people saying partner anniversary. Does it like say that? Oh, look at that. It's our partner. Wow, really? Huh? It's our partner anniversary. I thought we started in July. Oh, partner anniversary, right? We got partnered in September. Okay, that's pretty cool. Well, yay. Need a little grunt birthday party to go off in the background for those kinds of moments. Folks, thank you for coming and joining me today. We got a fun topic for the day, folks. Couple things. First of all, I kind of just wanted to kick back and chill and drink some waters and talk about Star Citizen. Questions, answers, more questions with more answers. You know, little what is it, rabbit hole? Down the rabbit hole? Yeah, rabbit hole dives into weird topics you might have questions about or want to just throw out into chat. We'll chase them down online. We'll find videos about them. I'll tell you what info I know. All that kind of good stuff. It's a little community time. So thanks for joining me today. Before we get to that, though, we're going to talk about the ship backlog. The good old ship backlog, everybody's favorite topic. And I've got some posts here that we can use to go over those numbers. So you can also kick back with a little bit of pitchfork, a couple pinches of salt over there. Be ready to rage today. Because it's everybody's favorite backlog. How y'all doing, though? Welcome in for another week. It is Monday, which means we're kind of happy, right? We're pretty happy on Mondays, as long as we sleep well on Sunday. Then again, that depends on what you do on Saturday, which ultimately depends on how your work week ended on Friday. So, whatever happened rolled over, I'm sure. Hope you had a good Monday, though, a good start to the week. Welcome in, Shifty. Frenchie, saw you guys hopped over here to the new stream. I'm sorry, folks, that we have so many stream problems. I'll tell you what, half of them are derived by our ISP, our internet company over here. So, considering we'll be back in the States starting next week, things should be better. Things should be more stable, at least for a while. So, hold those refund buttons, keep buying those ships. Our stream's going f***ing nowhere. I believe, as long as they at least give us this bare minimum they've been giving us. But how y'all doing in here today? Axis, good to see you. So cool. Covering somebody else's shift right now? Bleh, it's rough. Hopefully it's not a difficult shift. B-boy, how you doing? Frenchie, I already said hi to you. Get out of here. Cotton, holding it down on Twitch. I see you over there, 07s, buddy. Electros, thank you for the happy anniversary. Appreciate it. Nahore, how you doing? Welcome. Good to see you. Be kind to your math teacher. Math is not easy or fun to teach. Some people like it. I couldn't. I could not. Water Park. I'm doing well. Hope you're doing well. Vertigris, good to see you. Thank you for the anniversary. Adam, hello. Welcome, everybody. Welcome. Hey, Brazil. Good to see you. Hello, Kraken Privateer. Do I know roughly when 3.20 will release to the PU? I don't. That's one of those questions I can't answer. Believe it or not. When questions don't work very well for us. Any updates on the C1 or A1? Also how much they cost after being playable? No updates on those ships. At least not in the PTU, not that I know of. Title for this topic caught your eye. There are two things in Star Citizen you look forward to the most. Logging back into the game wherever you logged off, and the ship backlog getting taken care of. Well, this should be a good fun discussion about the ship backlog. Craig! What's up, mate? Y'all, sir, good to see you. Partner anniversary. Yeah. I didn't know it was coming up. Twitch put me on the spot. I'm supposed to know that, I think. And I don't. Division error, thank you as well. Feeling awesome since the 600i is winning against the cutter. The 600i. Who was the jerk who voted the Terrapin out of the race? Come on. Gave you a test on the first day of school. A little placement test. As long as she's not like grading it or anything. You're sad for you, Star Citizen will not finish the ships nor enter beta. For you? Will it do that for the rest of us? What's up, Crocodile? Good to see you. Ferrister! Yo, dude, Ferrister, how have you been, man? I've been meaning to hit you back up for another podcast chat. It's always fun having Ferrister on there. It's like talking to a documentary. This guy and his voice. If you haven't checked out Ferrister's channel, go check it out. I can't do shout outs on YouTube, but if you just type Ferrister into a search bar, not on the tab that I'm on, go ahead and open another tab. You can have us both next to each other. It's real great. It's good. Double the trouble. But go check out his channel. He also makes great Star Citizen content. Fantastic pace and good voice. And thanks for hopping in chat, dude. All right. Let me hit the magic record button here, because this is going to be something to record. Oh, this is going to be a fun little conversation. Can we change up the music, please? Can we get something a little bit more chill? It's like way too excited. Way too excited for me. All right. There we go. Now, folks, we got a fun topic today. The ship backlog is probably more exciting for players than new ships. It's the gift that keeps on giving. The ship backlog never goes away. And we've actually had some really great ways of tracking that over the years. So, your boy, Colonial Movers. I hate those words. Colonial, it's not Colonel. Sorry. They are an org. You can check out their org on RSI. I always want to give some love to the folks who are providing these sources with all this great information and these wonderful graphs and tables and things that tell us all about how many goals we've missed. But yeah, so they are an org. Also post on other places with their documents and stuff. I've got their pictures pulled up here. Sorry to all my people who are used to dark mode. I'm trying to blind you today. That's just how it is. We've got a full-on list here that shows how ships have been entered into the backlog, into Star Citizen's sort of concept pool, when they've been created, at what rate they've been created over the years, and from what sizes of ships have been created. It gets into detail. So we are going to dive into this, and I'll be taking questions throughout your shady remarks. Sprinkle a little salt on the chat. You know how it is. It's the backlog. No punches held. Thank you for joining me. Let's dive in. Oh, you can't actually dive in. It's really short. There's no zoom. So it's inconsequential. Anticlimactic compared to what I was trying to build up. Holston Coop, dude, thank you for the membership. 33 months now, buddy. How the time flies. You're telling me. 33 months. Can you believe we've even played a game that long? That's a long time consecutively. Fox Vlogs, thank you for the 12 months on Twitch, dude. A year. We are a year. That's eternity in high school relationships, man. I didn't even know it was possible in high school. I thought you just broke up at the summer break, you know? Well, thank you both for getting us started off with a membership and a Twitch Prime sub. Thank you. Now, our first ship, guys. What ship should we start with? To be honest, I wanna hear from you. All right, we don't have to go in order. I think the first thing to talk about, though, before we really dive in, is what ships are in the backlog. Because it tends to come down to, it wasn't up until maybe 2018, 2019 this started to be more true, but it tended to come down to like any ship that had a hefty amount of gameplay that had to go into it would end up just not getting made super quickly. And this obviously centered a lot around capital ships. So like the Javelin, the Genesis Starliner, the Orion, the Hull series, the Banu Merchantman, the Polaris, The Pioneer is a big one, and the Kraken. These are like the givens, but there are also quite a few of these concepts that probably shouldn't be in the backlog, and that's what we're starting to see taken care of more often now. That'd be things like the G12 or the X1, or what is something that came out, the Hull A. I guess the Hull A still kind of was using some physics grid stuff, but you start to see some of these smaller ships that really shouldn't be in the backlog getting taken care of. But the main thing to look out for is like specialized gameplay and size of ship. That's what pushes them back usually. You want to start with the Starliner? The A1 and C1. Those are barely even backlog ships. Those were announced and then immediately went into work. But they are very cool ships. Let's check out the C1. And these are, you know, everybody's got their belief, their theories as to why these ships would get worked on so quickly after being introduced as concepts. Usually it's because of Squadron 42 or there's something very particular gameplay wise that they need to do and they want to introduce as one of the ships. The A1 makes sense for size 5 bombs, I guess, and the E1 makes sense for passenger transport, which they aren't seeming to do right now. I don't know why the C1 will be needed, but that might just be the extra little cash cow they introduced with it. Either way, could also be that they just needed to fit a ship into this size range and wanted to get one out fast. Hey, leave my man Ferrister alone. Give Javelin. Dude, I mean, the Javelin's probably going to come out after Squadron 42, right? Only a short time here. Have to pack your stuff. You're on work travel again, Holston Coop. This dude is literally always working. Always. They're not even a year old. Went right into production. Right away. Yeah. So these are both due for... Let's hop onto the roadmap real quick. These are both due for our 3.20.x launches. So in some branch after 3.20 comes out, most likely October or November-ish. They'd be great IAE ships. And you can see them down here. The A1 got on here before the C1. You had me there for a little bit, CIG. But they got the C1 on here, and I'm guessing we're all still waiting to hear from the E1, which probably won't happen until passenger transport. So, going back to the backlog, the A1 and C1 are going to get passed off this year in 2023, but the E1 likely is going to be a little while longer. In fact, I don't even know if we're going to get passenger transport before 4.0. I did theorize we might get it this year, but it's starting to feel like maybe that is also something they realize that's not worth putting time into until the AI are running better, which means better server support, which means server meshing, which means 4.0, which means we have to wait. So that will be one ship staying in the backlog from the Spirit series. But C1 and A1 you can get excited for. Those seem to be coming in the next few months. Good stuff too. I love the look of this ship. This is like... I hate that this is what I've come to, but this might now replace the MSR as my daily driver. The original MSR concept was really the quintessential daily driver, I think, at least in terms of form. I mean, this thing looks so good in the concept art. There's a couple pictures of it. This is one of them. We can get a better one than that. In fact, let's just go to the wiki. The wiki. This thing, just in the concept art, had the look of a ship, you know? Where are all these pictures? Oh, original design. Yeah. So like this is a great one. Fantastic look. And it ended up not really translating into the game, unfortunately. They had to bulk it up quite a bit because it needed more space. Spaceships need more space inside when you actually are physicalizing everything. Who would have thought? But this was the original MSR. They had a big thruster here, had a smaller ramp in the back, and the ship itself was a lot more streamlined, a lot more sleek. So because of that, we've kind of moved over to the Spirit in hopes that that is the more sleek, compact daily driver ship from Crusader, but that loss will always hurt people, I think. Needs a cockpit exit door. Yeah, they've acknowledged it needs some changes, right? But it'll never be what the concept was, and I'm cool with that for the ship it is, as a 3 to 4 person, maybe a 2 to 4 person data runner. But if my daily driver, I need something a little more sleek. Matterball, what a save. How you doing? Welcome. You wouldn't talk about maneuverability until it is in-game, because we all know with CIG what they say on paper versus what is in-game are very different. Yeah, we don't know how exactly they're going to fly. I mean, it's an interesting concept because this ship is bigger than both of its main competitors, right? I mean, people say generally it's competing. Ferrister, what would you say? Competing with the Cutlass and the Freelancer? So I think in terms of size range, 48 SCU is about what you get with the Cutlass. I might be wrong about that. That actually sounds... I think the Cutlass has more than that. No, Cutlass gets 46 with a crew of 3. C1 Spirit gets 48 with a crew of 1 to 2. So they're, like, capability-wise... Yeah, they're competing. But size-wise, the freaking Spirit's 43 meters wide, and the Cutlass is 26. It's like almost a full 20 meters wider. So the ship itself is different. They're gonna have to give it some hits here and there to balance it out. I don't know, maybe fast line speed or fast straight line speed. Yeah, wide because of the wings, but that's also the cool factor. It's wide because of its cool factor, so I guess it'll fly better on control surfaces, better in atmosphere flight. Not having a turret really puts it at a disadvantage. Yeah, maybe a remote turret would have been nice. All right, what's another ship we can dive into? Let's talk about... how about the Vulcan? Do I have any Vulcan fans in the chat here? The Kraken. All right. Kraken is a 2018 ship. And I wouldn't say it's the most well-known ship. It came in with a nice little spark of joy, and people really liked what they were seeing. But it never really made any progress. It's a really big ship. It's a unique ship in that it's got landing pads on it. So this is this is an actual carrier. You've got 2 medium landing pads and 4 small ones, and they have to come up with both the technology to allow this to happen pretty easily while a ship is flying around. You know, you don't want these ships glitching through yours and blowing everything up. But they also need to come up with the reasons. Nobody has any reason to fly around with this many ships. So I think there are obvious reasons for why the Kraken wouldn't be in the game yet. Not as obvious reasons for why they decided to sell it in the state of the game that it was. But I think that goes without saying for a lot of the concepts, the capital class concepts at least, just are so wildly outside of the scope of the game right now that I think it was a very FOMO kind of buy, maybe. Also, the worry that this thing was going to get more expensive over time. That's kind of part of their marketing practices I'm not a huge fan of. What ends up happening is they release a concept, people buy it like crazy, and then it goes quiet for years, and then it ends up coming to game, people buy it again because those are the new people learning about it. This ship's still going to be a ways away, I think. I don't think we'll see this until we see the Liberator first. Also on the roadmap, backlog. They need full persistence, ship staying when you go offline, and log in where you logged off rather than tele to station. That's another thing. With a ship like this, they are going to have to figure out a lot of the details of logging on and off. Because you know how they wanted to do ship trespassing in the game recently? and they realized like they started to put it into the game. They said it was going to come in the update, and then they saw all these different like little these crazy little things that could happen with the ship trespassing system, and they realized it wasn't ready to go in the game yet. Imagine what that's going to be like with the Kraken, or with the game where you can land and store your ship on somebody else's ship, and then the game is going to have to figure out logging off rules, the priorities for ships despawning. Like, what happens if you fly your ship onto a ship, log off on your ship, but then that ship stays on until the next day when it logs off, but you were just about to log on? And what if there's somebody else who logged off on your bed before all that happened? Like, it's going to be kind of crazy. So something like this is like, we're not going to see this ship being put into the game until we hear that they're starting to figure that kind of stuff out. That's kind of one of the bummers of following the game, is that a lot of times the things that need to work for these ships are so obviously not in the game, you can expect that the ship's not coming anytime soon either. SC ship's very expensive in your currency, can only afford a $60 package, and only get a $60. In fact, get a $45 package. Get the basic one. Leave this stuff to the folks who need this stuff. You don't need this one. At the very worst thing ever, and actually how I'll probably experience most of these ships, is you're just gonna be crew. Work as crew on one of these ships, or get a ship that needs to land on one of these ships. Like, you could be the captain of one of these ships, right? You could work for somebody who owns a fleet of these, and they don't have enough time to be the captain on one of them. You could go and work your way up and be a captain. You never even have to own it. So there are a lot of ways, I think, to get access to these ships without shelling out half a kidney. Literally shelling it out. It's like ice cream scooper. But they do have to come at some point. Oh, we want more pictures. We want more pictures. Who out here owns a Kraken? Who's flying around with one of these carriers? Yo, Reese Toes Gang. How's it going, man? Good to see you. Is Kraken a Squadron 42 ship? It seems pretty model complete on the holo viewers. I would assume that this is going to show up in Squadron 42. Because one of the main enemies in Squadron 42 is a pirate syndicate. I don't think they have any lore for when this thing came out. So I'm assuming it's before the first Squadron 42 takes place. Here we go. Kraken was first introduced. No. Yeah, I'm assuming it exists in lore by Squadron 42. This seems like it would be something that's going to be used by those whatchamacallits, those pirates. Can't remember what their name is. You have a JPEG of the privateer. That's as good as it gets, man. If you don't have a JPEG, did it really happen? Hey, we all have JPEGs. Get a cheap package, join an org like GII, learn the game with org mates, and make good credits at the same time. You'll be able to buy any ships quickly. And on top of that, whenever you do actually want to play multiplayer, you don't have to worry about vetting a group of people that you've never met before. You got an org to back you up. What's up, Ricky? You think capital ships should not despawn at all? If you want to remove it from the open world, you have to put it in the hangar. So that's the risk, and it solves the problem. Okay. Okay. Demand-wise, that might be tough, but I mean, make it its own server, right? I like that. That's kind of how the bangle was always meant to work, right? You could find the bangle in the verse, but it could never despawn. You'd always have to protect it. Yeah. That's fair. Hey, if you asked Ferrister something 4 times and he hasn't answered, stop asking. Don't annoy him. We love him. We don't want him to go away, okay? You start poking a squirrel too much, it runs back in its hole. Not that Ferrister lives in a hole. All right. He knows far too much about Star Citizen to be living in a hole. Chef Boyardee. Why'd I just think of Chef Boyardee coming through the wall like the Kool-Aid Man? Yeah, capital ships should carry a lot of inherent risks. I mean, you're absolutely right about that. And this is... look at how much crew they have on board this ship. How much do they tell you you need? 10? That must be also including the people getting into the ships, because, oh my god, 10? I don't think I've seen another ship with a 10 crew capacity. You can still put the ship in your hangar to protect it, but when you just go offline while the ship is on a planet surface or in space, it should not despawn. Yeah. Basically, the cap ships are tied to a shard. Yeah, this would be an interesting component. These are the kinds of little things that they are probably not going to talk about until after they see what dynamic server meshing can do. Like, if you had asked Chris about this in Letter for the Chairman, or not Letter, 10 for the Chairman, like 6 years ago, he would have been like, yeah, the ships are going to persist and they'll, yeah, all that stuff. Now we don't hear about that. Not until server meshing is working, right? Polaris is 14 people. Polaris is 14 people? Okay, there's our next one on the backlog. Let's see. Polaris. When did you get it? It was 2015, 16? Yeah. 2016. This is the only ship that hasn't been produced from 2016 yet. So that's not bad. We got the Buccaneer, Dragonfly Black, MPUV Cargo, Prospector, Razor, Terrapin, Vandal Blade, MPUV Personal, and Vanguard Hoplite all were delivered from 2016, with the Polaris being the last one to do. So it actually looks like that is our most complete year, besides 2012, which is at 93%. That year, 9 out of 10 ships, 90% done. Polaris being that last one, and I know my man Drazen in chat, if he is in chat, probably jerking around in his chair at every mention of Polaris. There's something interesting about Polaris owners. Y'all are a fun lot. You got a lot of passion. You really like your ship. So they've got, 6 to 14 crew, 216 SU of storage. It's a $750 ship. Oh my god. This is an interesting ship. This ship was released in 2946. Now, I don't know if they're changing up the idea of Squadron 42 and when it takes place, because honestly, it's been a little while since they first introduced it. The way this was supposed to work out was that Squadron 42 takes place, and the conflicts in Squadron 42 that we are going to play through all happen. At the end of that, or rather, maybe not even at the end of that, I think it's before that all happens, the military makes the decision that they want a gigantic missile boat. So they hire RSI to make it, and throughout Squadron 41 and the time thereafter, they're producing this ship, which then is introduced to our arsenal in Squadron 42 Part 2. But 2946 is like in lore 7 years ago. So we don't actually know if they're just going to change the date that Squadron 42 takes place, if they're going to change the lore of how this ship was introduced, or if they're just going to scrap it all and say, okay, it's already in the game. But this is a very important military-based ship with a bunch of missiles that people love. And yes, it is supposed to be, what seems to be at least, the next capital ship that's getting released to Star Citizen. This seems like the first ship, the first capital ship that they are going to focus on making sure actually gets added into the game in their new push to make capital ships matter again. And we do have, we have confirmation of that. Let me find this the easy way. So replace the old version of the Idris, the old concept of what the Idris was. All right, here we go.
Like this. One of the most voted up questions here is about the Polaris. Simply put, is the Polaris actually in production? It shows that it is on the progress tracker, but the Apollo was once on the progress tracker at one point as well, and priorities change, and yada, yada, yada. So we'll go to Camera John here. There's one. Camera John. There we go.
Don't have the questions.
That just sounded like Ben wanted the question.
No, I didn't.
Oh, good. Ben was
No,
you were talking crap.
I think it's only fair.
Okay, Ben.
All right.
So is the Polaris in production?
I'm going to start with the Apollo.
Let's talk about capital ships and whether they're in development. So Apollo.
The Apollo is now a capital ship.
Yeah, it grew so much.
Don't.
All right, we'll talk about the Polaris. So the Polaris is I'd say it's more in pre-production. Like, we are spending time investigating it at the moment. As we've already kind of hinted on, when it comes to doing our capital ships, we want to make sure that we're tackling them in a way that allows us to scale up to not just do one capital ship and we can tick off a few more from the lineup. It is like literally the last couple of weeks we've been looking at it, breaking down the concept, breaking down what is involved with actually delivering it. I think what people need to understand as well is, this is quite an old ship. The concept is quite old. There's a lot of gaps in it, as Corey mentioned. So really, we're just doing our kind of, our sanity check on everything, make sure we've got everything in progress. It will be going into full production
Very soon.
shortly. Yeah, very, very soon.
Very soon, TM.
So
Chris deleted the old.
So that was our update in, when was this? I think this was June, early June of 2023. Late May of 2023, and by the July monthly report, I believe it was, they had acknowledged that they had started production on that. So that is going to be something that we see progress probably over the next like 18 months. And it's going to be slow. It's a big ship. But what they're going to be able to do with this is they will build it out. They'll get a bunch of assets, much like they did with the Cutlass and the Caterpillar and the Corsair that now help them make other Drake ships like the Vulture. And I don't know, something else coming up. What else is there Drake related that might be coming out? I don't know, the Kraken someday, I guess. But that's kind of what they do. They make a ship from a company. That company builds out the assets, helps them make other ships in the future. In this case being the Perseus, which is another pretty cool looking ship. And I believe it's a gunship. Very cool gunship. It's a frigate, but a large frigate. 100 meters long, which is actually shorter than I thought it was. I think it's maybe... what's it called? Carrack? I think that's about the Carrack length. Let's see. Anybody know how long the Carrack is? Can you get it before I can find it? 74 meters. So it's actually a bit longer than the Carrack. Like 25 meters longer than the Carrack. But it can transport a lot. It's a big ship. Very cool looking, war looking ship kind of thing. Oh, never mind. The Carrack grew. That page was outdated. Gotcha. So we're looking at about 126 meters. So this thing is smaller than the Carrack. But when you look at it in these pictures, it looks massive. It looks like Idris size to me. So it takes a little bit of calibration when you're looking at it. You get an idea here that it looks pretty similar in size to the Hammerhead. And this is another big ship that's, again, on the backlog, mainly because it is a big ship, also because it's got big guns on it, and the type of warfare, the type of combat gameplay in Star Citizen this is going to be the bread and butter for, isn't in the game yet. So until that is happening more and more often and they can actually test how capital ship combat would work, they're not going to put that ship in the game and spend all that time on it because it'll be worthless when it gets into the game. You know what I mean? Like, it's like the argument against the Reclaimer. The Reclaimer is a ship we got back in like 2017 or 2018, and we really didn't need it. But they wanted to sell more of them, so they got it in game. They wouldn't make the Reclaimer now until its gameplay was further along, because they have to be a lot more efficient with what they're making and what they're not. So the Perseus would be one of those, and the Galaxy would be another one of those. The Galaxy is also an RSI ship, and it's freaking beautiful. Another great looking ship. RSI's new style looks really good. So this is a ship that they introduced with modularity last year as a concept that people were not happy with. This has caused a lot of discourse in the community, which I happily dove straight into. But I don't know. I think a ship of this size makes sense. I don't know about the modularity of it, but this is another ship that would benefit from the Polaris being made, because those assets, and you can see the similarities between them, right? They're all a bunch of space Doritos, a bunch of military Dorito looking fools. If the Polaris comes into game and they're able to use it to make, where is that picture of it? Come on. Where are you? Do they not even they don't have it here. The one picture I'm looking for. Well, if this ship makes it into the game, it makes it easier for this ship to be made. And that's sort of the direction they're going in when it comes to capital ships. So you can see some of that lineup where that's happening. The whole series would be one of those. But then there are some other ones back here that are iffy. You're all for adding more turrets to a Perseus. So I see a lot of clamoring in the chat for I guess a crowd favorite that I didn't know about. We call it the Gattack. We don't call it that. That's actually its name, Gattack Manufacturer. And they make what's called the Raylan. I don't actually know if it's Raylan or Ryland. This is smooth and peaceful cargo. When I try to pronounce this name, I am literally smooth and peaceful brain. But I try. So this is a cargo ship from the Xi'an. Xi'an are alien race in Star Citizen lore that we have yet to see in the actual game. But they are... Who are they? I think if the UEE is the Roman Empire, they are literally the Xi. The Mongol? No. I don't even remember what empire existed in that space back then, but they were from the East. Yeah, the whole setup of the way that Star Citizen works in terms of lore, geopolitically, is actually very similar to that. You want to go to Astro Historian to learn more about that. He's got all the hookups in that sort of information. But generally, the Xi'an are in a position of being our longtime enemy previously, who we made a peace agreement with that is relatively stable. They've they're fighting a war on the other side of their empire against an enemy that is even stronger than they are, called the Kurthak. So we don't talk about that. But on our side of the empire, they are actually bordering us in space. And so we have a lot of trade agreement with them. We take a lot of inspiration from them. And at times, they'll even sell their own ships to us. This is one of those ships. This is a cargo transport from the company Gattack. And it's, again, a ship that looks bigger than it is. So, like, this thing looks huge here, right? You see these little tiny people here. Little cute ants. And then you go in here and you see that it is 54 meters long. It's just really freaking tall at 67 meters. So, was it a Ming Dynasty? Okay. So, this is an interesting ship. 320 SCU of cargo. 54 meters long. Clearly not human made. So, it's a fairly large ship with a unique construction. A brand and style from an alien species that isn't in the game yet, so obviously they haven't built that out very much. And special made cargo boxes. That's a lot of bespoke stuff, right? So again, this is another ship that it makes sense they introduced the concept, but they haven't had much reason to make it up until now. And interestingly enough, they have started to talk about that possibility. So if you go to Aopoa, here it is. God, I could not find them. If you go to Aopoa and you take a look at their ships, the Santok Yai is coming out pretty soon. This marks a pretty big deal because this is the last Aopoa ship that I think they need to do, actually. Because they've done, let's see, Cartual, the Nox. Yeah, I don't know what the Volper is. I think this is something they haven't really talked about coming into the game. But they've done the Cartual, they've done the Nox, they've done the Nox Q and all the other Noxes. Now they have the Santok Yai. And this would be the last alien ship that we would see until we don't know where to go from there. And obviously, I think they always want to be working on alien ships. So they have talked about now the team that's working on the Santok Yai possibly moving over to Gattack, who is a different alien manufacturer from the same species, to work on the Raylan. And that would bring us another large cargo ship, yes, but also a very, very different kind of ship from everything else. I think it'd be pretty cool to see that. Wall Grit, good morning, my man. Happy Labor Day. Happy holiday, brother. How's everybody having... Who's got a 3-day weekend? I woke up this morning and I didn't even realize it was Labor Day. MISC ships do have some Xi'an influence, yes. In fact, you can go into some of these profiles surrounding the ships. We could talk about the Reliant, I believe. And they do mention here Xi'an technology. Reliant makes copious use of this, from a moving cockpit that slots into place depending on the flight mode to omnidirectional thrusters licensed under the trade agreement with the AOPOA. Advanced Xi'an metal composites make up the armored wingspan, and every control surface has been meticulously updated from those developed for the Freelancer by MISC's internal Xenotech team. So, yeah, MISC is they make a lot of use of Xi'an tech, and we can see that in their more experimental line coming from the Mirai brand that was just introduced. And that's meant to use that stuff a little bit more. They have the Razor ships there. They also have the new Fury ships. You got 3 days? Nice. You had a 6-day weekend. Whoa. That's like almost a week. Shifty, you're getting 4 weeks off straight? Anything big planned for those 4 weeks? You're on day 6 of 9 at work, but we'll have your usual 5 days off starting on Thursday. Frenchie, I love that. I love that schedule for you. I'm glad that works. All right, alien ships. So we've talked a little bit about some of these ships in here. We'll get back to specifics, but I want to talk about something else. I want to take a look at the other graphs that they have put together here that kind of go into more depth of what the backlog is actually consisting of. Now, the first one here shows total ships per year being added to the game. And actually, I don't know if this is added to the game or as a concept. Let's see. They don't have the no, I don't think they have the description here of what that is. I'm not sure if this would be total added to the game or concepted. But the number, the overall number does decrease over time. Let's see. Variance. Yeah, I think this would be added to the game. That one's less clear. Let's go to this one. Easier to understand. So this shows how many ships were made flyable by spring of this year. It's about 6 months ago. 122 out of 168 total ships introduced are flyable and in-game. That's 73%. And you can see that generally that matches up with most of the ships, with small ships making up 94% launched into game. But capital ships are all the way down at here at 8%. And that's the big one that keeps holding us back. I think that's the big one that makes everybody notice that there's a backlog. It's just the general lack of capital ships, because it's actually kind of hard to pick out all the other ones off the top of your head, except for the more important ones like the Apollo and the Vulcan. Could I put the link of the ships by year on Reddit? I'm getting this from Reddit. This one? This is already on Reddit. This is posted by the channel who makes them, Colonial Movers. Liberator would seem ideal for Pyro, flown by players and NPCs to ferry smaller ships, but it's not on the roadmap. Yeah, I think they actually introduced that one talking about making it for Pyro. Yeah, no problem, Micro. No point to have capital ships when it would serve no purpose until any multiplayer, multi-crew gameplay is in. Right, yeah, and we talked about that earlier being part of the reason that they hold back on some of these ships, specifically those capital ones. But we do see that large ships are lagging behind a little bit as well, 58%. So mostly the smaller you go, or the closest to small ships, which are the most common ships, the more they've made. from a certain angle that makes sense, you know, they want to make the most ships for the most people who can use them because that would sell the most ships. It makes sense to make the more common ships flyable. So as long as this doesn't drop below 90 to 95%, I think that's good. But these larger ships do need to pick up, and over the next couple of years we'll have to watch that, hopefully with the Polaris coming in at capital class. Disagree fundamentally on that. That's fair. When will the Apollo be for sale? I don't know. That would be a while. What is the one capital ship? Probably no, that's the 890 jump, I believe. Which again, is in the game without its gameplay. Do I think modularity tech is part of their capital ship dev path? Well, they were working on it with the Retaliator. So I'm not sure. I don't know if the Retaliator is still their workhorse for that, if they're still doing work behind the scenes on that as their ship to test with. But they did say that the Hull C helped them with modularity work, so I'm sure we'll get an update on that pretty soon. I don't think their Reclaimer counts as capital. Might just be large. Capital ships have their place in the game right now. People forget that sandbox aspect allow us to make use of them without needing CIG to do it for us. True, but statistically speaking, less people are going to use those capital ships because they won't have that official support. Like, a capital ship's going to be so much more interesting when you can have an AI blade in it, or an engineer in it, or you can change out the large components, or you can more reliably spawn ships on those ships. Those things will just encourage people to use them more. So if people aren't using them as much, there wouldn't be as much reason to make them. Game feels bad because there are no capital ships. Not interested in light fighter citizen. And I think that means that we should just not play the game yet for capital ships. I do think that obviously capital ships would work in the game right now. People could make them work. But as we've seen very, very, very clearly over the last couple of years, there are literally not enough people working on this to be able to do all of the things that do make sense for the time we're at right now. Like, they should absolutely have bounty hunting V2 done. We should 100% be getting FPS scanning and radar multiple years ago. There are a lot of things that I think they could do right now, but they clearly have to bide their time and make the best decisions based on the amount of people that can be served with that stuff and how much money they can make on the decisions. So I do think that small ships are going to end up making more money because they are visible in game, because people know they can be used in game and stuff like that. And that's why they've started to change the way that they've put ships into the game over the last few years. We need the E1. The E1 is a cool ship. I do hope we get passenger transport soon. What is the 890 jumps gameplay supposed to be? I will point you towards this document here. It's all about that luxury transport. Essentially, imagine you have a box with legs and a full digestive and respiratory system, and wants and needs and likes and dislikes, and they want to go see certain things in the verse or be transported to certain places. Your job is to make sure that box gets to that place very happy. So you'd be having to curate your reputation, you'd be needing to fly well, and in certain ways you would need to be supplying them with food and drink on board, and you need to be making sure that they are okay and getting happy services taken care of them. This is all about getting people from point A to point B while maybe seeing point C and keeping them at point P. Get it? Pleasure, happiness, goodness. Sorry. Okay, so where were we? It'd help if they had fewer people stuck working on Squadron. Only hope that we will see more content come more quickly once they launch Squadron. That would be helpful. On to the next one. So this is another fun graph. Flyable versus roadmap versus concept in absolute numbers. And this again just gives you an idea. It's another way of seeing how many of the ships are flyable versus having been made. Now, I am fully in agreement with folks that like the backlog is too big, and especially considering the specific ships on the backlog, there needs to be more progress made more quickly. But in terms of overall ships in the game, I think this actually makes it look pretty decent. If they could whittle down this large section a little bit, there's like most of the ships in every category are flyable in the game. And as somebody who joined in 2018, that hasn't always been true. There were some times there when you really didn't have that many choices on what you wanted to fly, especially when it came to the medium-sized ships. So I'm not going to give them an excuse for not getting some of these ships into the game. Like I pointed out, there are a few in here that are kind of obvious. The Apollo being one of them. Next year, I would say the Expanse would be one of them. G12 is another one. Legionnaire would be great to at least hear that they're working on, but for a lot of these other ones, kind of understandable. In fact, after we get through this last graph, let's go through each one and see what they're missing. Backlog is big and growing, the growing part being a bit more problematic. I think that's... Is it growing? Main thing is capital ships take much larger proportion of the work share, so the graph would be more accurate if adjusted for ship size. Yes, and that's what I made sure to mention that here, that you're not going to be able to tell in terms of the actual workload because of the size of the ships, but in terms of number of ships, as far as what people can fly for themselves. These stats feel wrong. A ship with half functionality and no game loop should be considered as not delivered. Well, these are just, yeah, I guess they could say, this is just saying flyable. At least this one is. So this doesn't mean that the ship is complete. No ships in the game are complete. None of them have engineering. None of them have data transferring. None of them have a room system or a lot of different stuff working. These are just flyable ships. So that's the kind of stuff that will always be put on here in caveats and whatnot. We're looking at numbers. Isn't 320.1 releasing when IAE comes out? I don't know. It might, yeah. 3.20.1 could come out when IAE comes out. It could come out during CitizenCon. We don't really know what their timeline is going to be for those patches. Sometimes they come out within a month. Sometimes they come out within 2 months of the patch going live. Don't think the backlog has grown this year. If I remember correctly, it shrunk by 1 ship. Yeah, this would be something that would be better tracked. See, this isn't the... I think this is the most recent post on this, but it is 6 months old. I don't... Hold on a second. I did a video on this last year. Let's see if I mentioned that. Oh. Here we go. So I made a video about this last year for supporters, and it had like some graphs in here that showed the way the backlog was growing. I'm not sure if, let's see, unique flyables, unique total, unreleased. So this didn't show the difference in their oh my god, why is this only uploaded in 720p? Oh, I'll have to re-upload this video. Wow, that's not good. This doesn't show their slopes compared to each other. But the red line is the total ships and the blue line is the ships in game. So for the backlog to be growing, these two would have to be separating in distance. I don't know where it is right now. But somebody should do the count and see if the backlog has been growing. This far, it seems they're avoiding adding to the backlog, focusing on straight to flyable or soon flyable. Yeah, over the last couple years, they've switched a lot more to straight to flyable ships than concepts. So they've been adding ships into the game without taking care of old ships, but those ships that they've been adding haven't as much been concept ships as they've been straight to flyable. And we'll probably get a concept at CitizenCon. There's usually, I think, 1 to 2 a year. But back in the day, we were getting probably like five concepts in a year. I wish they split it up here. Hey, Shemp. Galaxy would count as growing. Yeah, the Galaxy would be another concept. The thing is, if the Galaxy was added, was there a ship that was delivered that year to negate that? That would be the difference between the backlog growing as opposed to just the number of ships in game, or the number of ships attached to the game growing. Real question is, will the A2 replace the C2 as the most friendly Ghost Hollow favorite? Because of the guns? Even the spirits that are coming out, were announced last year, are coming out soon. Yeah, that would take away from the backlog. The last graph shows it hasn't been growing in the last few years. This one. Yeah, Hull C, Hull A, Vulture, Lynx. Now the X1 is being worked on. Santok Yai is being built out. Those are all ships from the backlog. Oh, and the Corsair. Here we go. Unreleased known ships and how they are listed on the roadmap. Okay, so this is all of the ships that have been unreleased, marked down by their size and denoted by their year. In terms of capital ships, most of them were announced before 2015. In or before 2015. So in terms of capitals, they actually kind of stopped announcing them, but that might also be because they changed the definition of a capital, right? Look at all these ships that maybe you would think are capitals, like the Perseus or the Galaxy, but they're actually just large ships. So there are a lot of large ships that need to be worked on. Medium ships, we see 4 of those about to be put into the game at the end of this year. So soon there will only be 2 more on the list, one of them being the Hull B. And for the small ships, the SRV is almost in game, so that'll be a good one. The Legionnaire is one that I'm very confused about with the Legionnaire. I don't know what they're trying with that. Like, are they trying to get the Legionnaire in for hacking gameplay? Because they don't really talk about it like they do. But why else would they be working on it? The Liberator is one that I would have expected to come into game, though, before 4.0. And then we have the snub ships, which the X1 is the only thing on there, and that one we know is also being worked on. The Lynx was just added to the game, but none of these other ground vehicles have any sort of sign of coming into the game. I think the G12 might be getting worked on right now, but we'll have to see about that in the next monthly report, which comes out this week. So a lot of large ships and a lot of capital ships, and unfortunately those take most of the work. And that's why it does seem like right now they are really starting to get into understanding how long it'll take for them to make them. You would prefer they don't focus on the backlog of ships or content. They need to focus on finalizing back-end systems and fundamental tech to prevent code refactor or more ship passes. I don't think they're focusing on either one. The ship team, I do think, is focusing on their backlog, but like the people who are focusing on the back end systems and the tech, I don't think are moving away at all to handle these ships. I think if there was any sort of thing that would require that, they would probably just put those ships off until those people could finish that stuff up. If the Legionnaire is going to force docking, wonder if it'll cut into the ships. I think it just hacks the docking port, to be honest, and basically gives you permission. They can polish existing ships to match with things like engineering. Yeah, that is a point. Honestly, I'd be interested in knowing if the folks on the vehicle team would need to be doing the engineering stuff. Because that might be the EUPU team. Oy. It would be in, yeah, that's something that we don't really know for sure. Thank you for the stretch reminder. They got to work on finishing their backlog. They took literal hundreds of millions of dollars and are supposed to give us a product. We need them. Yeah, well, every person you ask says that the product is something different. Some people say it's the ships. Some people say it's the gameplay that should make the ships important. It's always a different answer. What should they work on? Your ship or the gameplay that makes your ship work? My opinion, it should be both. Balance out the work on both teams, both sides. Just finished watching the engineering roundup. Amazing work. Thank you, Kiblams. Glad you like it. Oh, I got your redemption. Thank you for this, for the stretch warning. What the heck was that? There's a lot of tech debt as recent and new features come online. They know full well what is implied when they sell you a ship concept. When you make a game that revolves around ships, you got to deliver the product. Yeah, agreed. But again, what's the product? The game or the ships? I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying I have made a lot of videos and a lot of statements about this, and what you'll discover is that every person has a different idea of what they need to deliver in order to be worthy of what they've sold. The hard position they put themselves into is they wanted to build these super complex spaceships with all these features in them. But in order to fund the devs that could make the features that go into the spaceships, they had to go and sell the spaceships first. So now they're in this tough position of racing to try and use the money funded by those spaceships to make the features going into the spaceships so that everybody can finally play a finished game. And we're starting to see that a little bit. The engineering gameplay that we're seeing, mining and getting better, salvage coming into the game, those are the sort of long-term things that they've been trying to put together over the last several years that haven't really come together until more recently. Engineering being a future thing, as always. On a fundamental level, creating the ships first and then waiting for the content to use them was the old version of Star Citizen shipbuilding. Since then, they've changed the idea to make the content before they're making the ship, because they got money. Exactly, both. The game can't exist without the ships. So they've got to keep building out the content and the ships as they deliver the features. Right now it's playable and fun. If they keep this momentum and increase it, we in a good spot. They gotta get server meshing into a workable state. They really, really got to. You can tell that these teams are needing server meshing to work for their stuff to work. And you can tell that the server meshing team is the engine team is just under a lot of pressure. Not to say that there's like any sort of internal battle between the teams or anything, but you can imagine they're under pressure to get this milestone out of the way so that the game can start to explore the different content that they couldn't do before. The Hull C, in the PTU bolstered your confidence in the game? Why is that? Economy, gameplay systems, gear lock behind, rep, and factions. Yeah, the reputation stuff is super crucial. I would say reputation takes precedence over any ship, you know? That kind of stuff changes the entire game. When you can start locking things behind reputation, building mission chains out of that, you're creating something that people actually can shoot for. Have we not had anything big since the A2? All right, to finish this off, let's take a look at the different ships that are on here and see if there's like an obvious reason for us not to have it yet. And maybe make a connection between a feature or a deliverable that has been mentioned before in the past that might explain it. That sounds like an interesting little activity. Call it tomato torture, because it sounds disappointing. All right. Idris M. The Idris class of ship is, I think it's also a frigate. They're pretty huge, and they are your premier ship in Squadron 42. This is the ship that you're going to, I don't know if it's the M or the P, I think it's the M. Yeah, the M is the military variant. This is the ship that's going to be your home in Squadron 42, where you go, it's like your home base. It's where you'll always return to after a mission and see other NPCs to socialize with, where you'll get more missions, where you'll advance the story. This one is kind of obvious in that they don't want to spoil it, and this was one of their big excuses back in the day. They don't want to spoil it before it comes into Squadron 42, so they don't put it in Star Citizen first. On top of that, I think this also just has too much internal capital ship gameplay for them to really know all of the details of the inside. And a ship this big is just, is there any point in finalizing it before you do that stuff? So there is still plenty that needs to be done with this ship's interior. They even confirmed in that YouTube video we watched a little bit earlier that this is not a completed model. This is not ready to go in the game. They are just able to get it into the game during certain events that we can fight against and watch go parade around in fireworks. Yay. So that's the Idris. That's the only ship from 2012 that hasn't launched yet. I'm most excited for the C1 in terms of upcoming ships, upcoming in the next 6 months. The Banu Merchantmen. Oh boy. This ship's gonna have I'm gonna have so much fun making a video about this ship being made. The Banu Merchantmen is a bazaar. It's a literal flying bazaar. It's meant to be a shop where people can dock to the ship, come in, sit around holograms, and look at cool displays of what they might be buying, all being held into the in the cargo center in the storage bay. You got rooms for private meetings between large weapons manufacturers, and honestly, can you guys imagine the cool espionage sort of data running or data brokerage based missions that they could write into the game for that take place on a ship like this? One of the most exciting things about capital ships is they're not just ships that we get to play on as characters. These are also the set pieces for missions when we start getting more narrative missions in the game. And like as a set piece goes, we're going to be able to interact with the ship and do all these different things on it that you can't in normal games, because those normal games make the vehicle for that set piece and then forget about it. We get a set piece that's fully interactable. Sorry, that excites me. Anyways, this will be a cool set piece for missions. It's also going to be a very complex ship, I think, for them to make gameplay wise. And while they were working on it and hyping it up quite a bit a year or two ago, probably they should not have been, because they ended up losing the people who were working on it. Those people moved on to another job, and this ship had to go on the back burner. A big reason because of that, big reason for that, is that much like the Gatak Raylan, this is a large ship from an alien manufacturer, and they haven't really fleshed this kind of thing out before. So it takes a lot of high end, you know, you want to get somebody who's very highly ranked, has done a lot of work for your company, who has proven that they know what they're doing when they're defining a brand new design structure. And unfortunately, the person who was doing that left. So they have to now wait until somebody else gets all the way up to speed and gets to the point where they can start to work on this as well. So unfortunately, this one is going to be a ways away. I think mainly this didn't happen because of that alien structure that it has, but also because it would need so much commerce and economy related gameplay to be in there in terms of like trading and NPC interactions and ships docking to ships, that a ship like that's going to just be a glorified cargo hauler if it does come into the game. All right. Next up on this list is the Hull C. Now remember, this list is from 6 months ago. This isn't completely up to date. The Hull C is on here. We know that it's coming in game. We literally have flown it in our stream. So Hull C, good to go. Orion comes after that. The Orion is the largest mining ship in the game so far. It is going to be a, I think, 4 to 7 person juggernaut. This thing is freaking crazy. It's insane. It's actually got this really cool animation. I think this is it. No, they don't have it on here. The pods on the outside that hold all your ore actually move. There we go. This is it. They actually rotate, and it looks really nice. It's not very detailed on here, but you can kind of see it in this video. These little pods rotate around the central axis, and just a very cool sort of almost Nostromo looking look, kind of like the Reclaimer. It gives you that sense of the alien universe. Awesome ship. Very cool looking. I'm excited to see what it does. It's got tractor beams on it. It's got mining lasers on it. It can crush asteroids and then process them as full chunks. It has grown. This is how big it used to be compared to a Constellation you can see over here. And this is how big the model is now. So this is a large ship. This is a big one. And they're not going to be making it for a while. They did do some gray box or white box work on it. So they had started some of their design around it, which is, I think, at least they have some basis and some knowledge of the scaling that goes into it. But I don't think this thing will be in game until the mining that we're doing right now in our smaller ships is defined and understood. We have tractor beams working very well. We have multi-ship commerce working well, and we have an economy that can handle mining at this scale, as well as the mineable assets for this. This is going to include, I think, an entirely different way of mining to be formed. So I don't expect this for a while, but that also explains, again, why it's not in the game. There's a lot of stuff that has to work for this to work. It's a 4 to 7 person ship, so it's going to need things like server meshing to make sense as well. Carries a lot of cargo, so it probably needed to make sure that larger cargo boxes would work and the economy picked up for it. So another ship that they could make it, but without the gameplay, it doesn't make much sense. Do they make the gameplay first or the ship? They're starting to now opt for the gameplay. All right. Next after the Orion was the Idris P, which is stuck behind the same problem as the Idris M. So that does 2012 and 2013. On to 2014, we've got a lot here. We've got the Crucible. Crucible is a repair ship. It is your repair space station owned by a player out in space. It has a removable module to it that can, I think, fly around on its own. Yeah, you can see here, it can kind of keep this vehicle and ship bay in here, or it can remove it so that a large ship can move into the cradle and get some repair work done. In this shot, you can see there's a Hornet over here. This is an old ship, a very old concept. You can kind of tell from the concept art that it's rather old in style. I mean, look at the Idris looking completely different here. Not completely different, but definitely different. But you get an idea of the size of it. It's fairly big. 90 meters long. So it's up there. And it's going to take repair drones, I think. If I'm not mistaken, this thing does have drones on it. Might not. I might be wrong about that. But it does need to be able to do ship repair. It needs to be able to have a detachable component. And it obviously needs to be able to have a reason in the game in terms of repair. Did they say it was getting bigger? I think they did say this was getting bigger at some point. Which wouldn't surprise me as other ships came into the game since this was concepted. So again, another one that's missing its gameplay. I mean, I would say you might be able to bring this in for the sake of people doing handheld repair in the vehicle bay, but our handheld repair isn't even in the game. We don't have component changes really. Repair is just the opposite of hull scraping, so the gameplay's not there. In the next 2 years, though, this would be something that might want to start being considered, in my opinion. It's got drones too. Okay, drones is something that we'll talk about with the Apollo. There's an RSI miner that will slot somewhere between the Mole and Orion. Yeah, didn't they concept something like that? There are a lot of ships not being held out by new systems, and we will get to those. What do I think of the Galaxy? We'll get to the Galaxy as well. We're going through all these ships. All right, the Endeavor is another one. These old ones really have a lot of reasons. I mean, the Endeavor might actually be the last ship made for this game. If you don't know, the Endeavor is a modular, massive science platform, currently concepted at 200 meters, but will probably end up being bigger. And it is meant to have a detachable front section that can fly as its own spaceship, multiple pods that can attach to it as modules, and the ability to do things like deep space scanning, farming on board, a full-on atomic science center, a particle collider, service crew modules, general science pods, fuel pods, like barracks. This ship is insane. This ship is actually crazy, and I don't know when they would ever make it. This is, like I said, I could see this just being the last ship they make, and there's no knowing when it could come out. I'm sorry to anybody who has ever bought one of these. There's so much work that has to go into the gameplay before this would ever make sense to bring into the game. But maybe they'll bring it in before that, right? Maybe they'll just make it some giant hunking carrier that flies around doing nothing. We can hope. But yeah, I don't think we're going to see that one for a while. It'll probably be the last thing on here. The Genesis Starliner, however, I don't know. What do you guys think of the Genesis Starliner? The thing is useful, but at the same time, they have introduced now the 890 jump, the E1, and the Constellation Phoenix, which can all be the first thing to get passenger transport gameplay. So if, like, you don't need the Genesis to introduce passenger transport gameplay, how long will it take for this thing to get that gameplay or get into the game after it's been introduced? Because this is another one that I don't know if they're going to work on it anytime soon. The most popular ship in GII. I love this picture of it in particular, and I like the idea of Star Citizen building out more of the lore around people who are just living normal lives and using spaceships as like taxis almost, or as ways to get around. One of the things I've kind of liked about Starfield is that they've made planets, even though the planets feel small, they've made them feel like they are very self-contained. You go down, you meet people on this planet. These are people who haven't flown off planet their entire life. And I know that's going to exist on Star Citizen. We just haven't really got to see it yet. You can tell already that with these derelict outposts that they're making, they're talking about planets not really getting explored to the point that somebody could be out there for decades without ever being discovered. kind of crazy on a planet like Microtech, but maybe on moons, I could see something like that possibly happening. Maybe. I don't know. I probably would have to be more of a frontier system than anything, but I do want to see more of that like everyday life kind of situation going on in these systems. And Genesis Starliner and passenger transport ships are kind of all about that. That being said, don't expect anything about this until passenger transport is in-game, probably via another ship first. So this one isn't really being held back by passenger transport. I mean, the 890 jump came into game, and I understand they wanted to get a capital ship in the game for that, but this one seems like it could be a go-to choice. They would just have to go and reconcept it, so it might be too much work for them to consider. I don't know. Oh, I guess they'd also need all of the stuff that comes with making passengers happy. So yeah, that would probably take a lot of reconstructing of the interior once they realize how all of that passenger transport gameplay would work. So you're just adding to the tech debt. Alright, Javelin is behind the same problem as the Idris, Squadron 42 related. Also one of the bigger ships in the game. But besides that, it's technically in the game as an NPC you can fight against. I'm not going to say that means it's launched or flight ready, but they at least put it in the game to fight against. I don't know if there's any other excuse. It's a combat ship, so there's no other reason for it to not be in game other than server meshing doesn't allow for a ship that big to have the proper crew, and they want to save it for Squadron 42. The Lynx is in game. We have seen it's being it was added, I think, in 3.19. So that one can be taken off of here as well. The hull B, D, and E were all waiting for the same stuff as the hull C. So we might start to see work on those now that the hull C is in game. At least the D and the E. Or the D and the B. The E is a separate model from those two. The C is the big version of the B. Or no, I'm sorry. The B is the big version of the A. The C is the big version of the... No. The B is the big version of the A, the D is the big version of the C, and the E is a special ship on its own. God. So the E might take a little bit while longer after that. Alright. Onwards to 2016. We've got the Polaris. That is one that we've already been over today. And it's a combat ship, so much like with the Javelin, I don't think there's too much reason to not be building this one other than the fact that they didn't have the assets and they didn't want to focus on capital ship gameplay. But now that it seems they're moving into it, this does seem like one that they would be doing. Before this, though, there was no reason other than they just didn't want to work on it. They thought it was too big. Because this ship would have worked, I believe, before this, besides the size 9 torpedoes, which I think we do have. I don't think there was any reason to hold back on the Polaris. So it's good that they're finally starting to work on it. Moving on from 2016 to 2017, we've got the Pioneer. I think, I just searched Pioneer. I think the Pioneer is probably one of those ships that definitively we can say that Star Citizen should not have introduced when it did. They were on one that year. They really were. I don't think that was the same. What year was that? Was that 2017? Is it going to show me that? No, it's not going to show me what year that was. Yeah, that was 2017. I believe that was the same year they tried to charge to watch the second stage content online, right? Or was that 2018? That might have been 2018 they did that. But in this year at CitizenCon, they introduced to us the Pioneer ship with the ability to buy a land claim beacon. This hit in a different kind of way. Because what ended up happening was people thought they were literally selling the land on planets. They thought that you were getting a plot of land and nobody else would get access to that, when they were really basically just selling the little beacon in game that you would eventually be able to go out and take out and claim some land. Not a huge deal, but it did not come off very well. And this ship was introduced alongside the concept of base building. Base building is nowhere to be seen, not even close. It's going to be a while for base building. So clearly this ship had no reason to be worked on either, and no reason to be introduced. This was just something that they were hyping up into their game feature, raising some money during the event with no intention of delivering this ship anytime soon after it was introduced. Not a good look. And this continues to sit in the backlog and probably will continue to sit in the backlog for years. This was just not a good introduction to the game. It's a really cool ship. Like, I love the way it looks. I love the idea behind it. The idea behind the gameplay that you need to bring somebody who specializes in building bases down to your location and actually physically do it. Awesome. But not in 2017. I mean, here we are 6 years later, and this has barely even been mentioned. So this is one that should have been introduced later on, and there's really, I mean, obviously the excuse of not making this is that base building is not in the game, but there was no excuse in introducing it anyways. This was the least likely, I think, besides the Endeavor, for us to see coming out anytime soon. And the Endeavor at least was introduced back when the game didn't even have planets to land on, you know? That was a different concept of a game back then. Oh, I don't think we'll have problems with base building running out of space on these in this game. You could like probably give every person who currently plays the game actively a 50 by 50 kilometer block of land, and you wouldn't even fill up half a moon in the Stanton system, you know? By the time we have 6 systems, we're not going to be able to run out of space. Or you could just nuke somebody else from orbit. There's always that. Next up, we've got the X1. The Origin X1 is a hover bike. The last hover bike we need to get into the game before all the hover bikes are complete. This one's a weird looking one though. Straight up looks like you're sitting in it backwards. Like if you look at this, can you tell which side is the front? Because it's not the side I would have thought of, but you are facing to the left in this picture. It would be... Yeah, the left is the front. It's very weird. You sit in it basically like a motorcycle. See if we got a... You can kind of see the little head there sticking out. Here's a picture of somebody in it. So it's got this weird shape to it. You know, Origin, they like to be fancy. And there was no reason for this not to be in game. So we had the Nox and the Dragonfly. So as a hover bike goes, this thing should have been in the game a while ago, and it's good that they're working on it now. I really do want to see this thing launched this year or early next year, because it's already taken long enough. It's not a super important vehicle. It's not going to make a difference to the game, but it will be taken off the backlog, and it's going to be good to see it entered. There are tons of players. All right, let's do a little math here. Let's say we got 500,000 players, yeah? And every one of them makes, uses a 50 kilometer stretch of land. It's 25 million kilometers. Now let's square that. And let's say they all are using a, hold on, I gotta square it. I hope Google knows the square. Let's say they're all using, here we go, 6.25, oh God, I don't know what that exponent is, to the 20th meter squared. Yeah, we'll say that. Now let's get the surface area of Daymar. Okay, well, I guess we'll just get the diameter first. Nobody got the diameter of this? Somebody hit me with that diameter number. I'm not seeing it anywhere. That's actually kind of surprising. All right, how about we pick microtech then? Somebody must have done microtech by now. Surface area. Oh man, this is hard to find, huh? Have the square of the entire thing. Oh, I guess I should have squared before I multiplied, huh? PEMDAS and all that jazz. Man, there's no information about these things, huh? They have the orbital period. I'm trying to find the surface area of a planet. If you guys are trying to help out. Once I have the number, I could get the measurement. The problem is finding the number. I could have sworn this is information that I've seen online before. All right, microtech, star citizen, diameter. Okay, here we go. Cool, somebody did the math with the lore numbers. So 600 kilometer diameter on a moon. Okay, so let's say surface area of a 600 kilometer diameter sphere. All right, so we're doing 1.13 million kilometers squared. Let me save that number. And then we want to say we have 500, I don't know, 500,000 players. Times. Oy. I just drew a blank. Roughly 12.5 million. Yeah, so I'm getting about that. 1.13 million. God. So let's say we've got a 50 by 50 plot of land for each player. It's 2,500 kilometers squared times 500,000 players. That is 1.25 million kilometers squared versus 1.13 million kilometers squared. So if all 500,000 players, hold on. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. I think I got that number right. Billion to the 6 billion? Wait. 1, 2, 3. 100, 1, 2, 3, thousand. Million. Billion? Did I do something wrong there? That's 1.25 billion. Okay, so then it would be 500,000 players would need 1.25 billion kilometers squared. Well, okay, I stand corrected. I hate math. I don't like doing math live, I'll tell you that much. For the record, For the record, I got my mechanical engineering bachelor's in science, but I never had to do that on camera. You know what we can do instead? Hold on, I'm gonna cheat. Give me 1 second. How much did you say was the size of Microtech? Microtech, radius, okay. The planet has a radius. 93 kilometer. How many planets? I'm doing it all in chat. What do we need? I'm cheating. All right, let's see what chat says. Much easier than doing the math myself. All right. So if every person was going to, oh my God, I'm not going to check this either. The max size is 8 by 8. Okay, fine. What if they got an 8 kilometer squared plot? We'll do that instead. Because that's just too many. It's too much for me. I'm not going to try and check that. Do the math with 8 by 8 kilometer against a... Well, let's see. If each person in the game requires an 8 kilometer plot, squared plot of land, you would need an approximately 44 planets the size of Microtech. Okay. So that's a lot of people. But that's assuming that 500,000 people are going to build a base that's 8 by 8. Oh, Jesus, 8 by 8. Well, wouldn't an 8 kilometer squared plot of land be that? You know what? I hate this. I give up. I don't do enough regular math anymore to do this. I quit. Point in case. The planets are pretty big, and I think unless everybody is building a base, they're not going to need to worry about that. 8 times 8 isn't 8. Yes, it is, Skippy. BI mission at Gundo. What? It had data pads, yeah. Many people might just share an org base, and the average base size is small. It's also not, please, stop getting hysterical. It's not going to ruin the game. That's like saying that all of the javelins in game are going to ruin the game. You better be more worried about people having capital-sized ships in mass than people having bases in mass. They put enough things in the game that people won't want to do that stuff or won't want to keep up with it. Eight squared is 8 times 8. You were assuming that build the one base in one layer. There's also that. They could be building vertically. But I don't think that people are going to want bases for the most part. Especially if that base can be able to be attacked. But they're not gonna, it's not, base building won't ruin the game. Why don't we get back to this anyway so I can stop embarrassing myself at my depleted math skills. Star Citizen's already being over-engineered enough. Engineer my mind. Where were we? You're on the Apollo. So the Apollo, oh gosh. The Apollo. The Apollo. This is another ship that probably should already be in the game, but I think there's one key thing holding it back. So this is a medical ship made by RSI yet again. You can tell it's got a lot of the same kind of styling as the Constellation and even a little bit of the Mantis. Little sharper lines. It's a nice size. Honestly, if they made an exploration variant of this ship, I might choose that over the C1. In fact, how long is this? 43 meters. So this is like the same size as that C1, A1, E1 ship coming from Crusader. But you could argue it looks better. It's basically going to be a flying clinic. You'll have 6 medical beds in it. You'll be able to take care of specific ailments that are coming from more hard-hitting injuries and stuff than, say, I think your Cutlass Red. Oh, snap, we getting raided by Super Mac. Super Mac, brother, are you still there? Please tell me you're still there. God, I want to get this guy on a podcast episode. He's so hard to get a hold of. Welcome in, folks. Welcome in. Thank you for joining me. Mihai Zaris, thank you so much for the sub. Appreciate you. 4 months. Welcome. Welcome, my friends. We're going over the ship backlog right now, the Star Citizen backlog, and looking at all the ships and the reasons that they are not in game yet, and raging about them. You know how it is. It's that time of the quarter. So right now we are talking about the Apollo, which is a little medical ship, nice little looking thing. And as I said, you could argue that this ship looks better than the Spirit series from Crusader. Many people won't. But it is around the same size, and I think if there was an exploration variant of it, it would be pretty cool. I always turn on dark mode over here, guys, but it turns it off. Your eyes will be okay. So the reason that this ship, I think, is lagging behind a little bit is because it has Shepard Medlift drones. Each Apollo comes equipped with 2 Medilift semi-automated emergency extraction pods, each capable of lifting up to 226 kilograms quickly and securely from ground to ship. Each drone is outfitted with payload preservation armor, auto gyro stabilization, and shock balance. Ooh. So this is definitely the kind of ship that is probably going to see medical gameplay brought up to the next level before we get it. And if we're looking at medical gameplay right now, actor status T2 would be where that's coming from, including hygiene, NPC status tracking, multiple bites, DNA integrity, medical insurance, cybernetic limbs, and cloning. Honestly, this might not even come out before that. You might have to wait until medical actor T3, because this is... I don't know how much... Like, these are 2 different types of features. You've got drone as its own separate feature. They're going to have drones for mining, salvaging, transportation, and medical, obviously. But you also have medical gameplay. So, like, is this talking... Are we going to have to wait for some kind of different form of medical gameplay that has to do with medical drones? Or are the drones going to be basically carrying boxes, but instead of boxes, they're people? You know what I mean? Like, there are a couple reasons why this ship could take longer if we're talking about the features that it includes. As a ship, I would have loved to see this come in before medical gameplay, because it's just beautiful. But I imagine they want to make sure they have everything that they need to know what's going to be around medical beds, what's going to be inside of medical beds, how much space medical beds will need, what kind of attachments might need to be around them before they model the whole interior and make all these drones, and then figure out, oh, things are going to change. So again, one that's definitely being held back by its gameplay. Especially unfortunate considering it's such a small ship and we already have the Cutlass Red. Cantor, thank you for gifting out that membership over to Sayaka. Appreciate you. The joke is that the Apollo looks like a fried turkey complete with the legs sticking out. It's a cute fried turkey. I quite like it. Wonder what excuse CIG would come up with for all the combat ships not released. Well, we're getting there. Next up is... I guess we already went through the Polaris. I don't think they had an excuse for that. I think that's just big RSI ship, so they didn't want to work on it. And the Javelin and Idris are Squadron 42. But next up is the F-8C Lightning. This is one that I think they're waiting on Squadron 42 for as well. Although somebody correct me if I'm wrong. I actually don't know if they've said they wanted to wait for Squadron 42. I know this is an important ship for Squadron. This is also a ship that you unlock by beating Squadron, if I'm not mistaken. But I haven't expected them to put this one in game for a while. Is that correct? So this one's held back by Squadron. We've seen people fly this ship in game. If you can get it off the NPCs, then it is functional and you can use it. They just haven't polished it, brought it up to feature complete for the actual game. Yeah, we've looked at the Idris. Checked it out a little while ago. On to the Kraken. Ah, the Kraken. We talked about this one already as well, so I won't spend too much time on it. But we talked about the technology that this one would need. Obviously, when it comes to logging out, logging in, storing ships, all that kind of stuff would have to be figured out in a much better way for this ship to make sense. Otherwise, you're going to have people doing all sorts of weird problems. We drew the comparison to the ship trespassing. Something that they thought they could introduce into the game before they ran into a bunch of edge cases and realized they'd have to hold it back. I think the same thing would happen with this. You could introduce this to the game, but suddenly you'd have problems with people logging off, logging on, storing ships, spawning ships, all that kind of stuff. And it's a big Drake ship on top of that, so they would have to put out a lot of time to develop the ship and a lot of time to develop the gameplay. I'm guessing they want to wait until the gameplay folks are ready to do that before they start working on the ship as well. And it's a lot of players on this one. 10 is the suggested crew size, but again, this is before all the gameplay has been figured out. Stream is lagging. Man, I didn't even realize how much I was slouching there. Okay. Onwards from the Kraken. Yo, prisoner, thank you for the bits. Appreciate you. Yeah, hygiene includes toilet and shower. Toilet and or shower. I don't think you need to do both. I think hygiene is going to be like a bar or something. Maybe not a bar, but like a something that is tracked on a one-axis sort of bar, and whether you go to the bathroom or take a shower or wash your hands or whatever it might be, they all deplete that bar. And it's not really going to be something that you need to pay too much attention to. Somebody also asked about multiple bites. I'm pretty sure they just mean of food. Yeah, like congrats, you pooped today. Well done, good job. Keep pooping. After the Kraken is a Santak Yai. This is a combat-focused alien ship that we know is being worked on and should be in the game by the end of the year, I would say. This will be a good one, marked off the backlog, as it means Aopoa is all done with their ships, at least for now, and we might start to see work on the Gatek Raylan, which we will get to a little bit later. But yeah, it's just good to see another alien ship come out. That means they're getting further and further ahead on their alien backlog and understanding how those ships are made. Is this game a scam? No. They could toss the Pegasus as a static thing and let players go crazy with it for a while. The Pegasus? Pegasus? What is going on? Hello, Galactic Warrior. Okay, sorry. Vulcan. Vulcan is another one that I wanted to get to today, especially because it's one of my favorites in the game. Really rarely talked about. This thing is a workhorse. This is one of the oldest... Actually, this isn't that old a concept. This is from 2018 this was introduced, so not that long ago in terms of Star Citizen. This one also has drones, though, as you can see here. And before we get this ship, they're going to have to get drones working. Now, the good news on that is that the Pegasus Light Carrier. There's a name you don't hear much. The good news about that is that last year they mentioned that they are getting drones in the game in some way for Squadron 42. Because that is going to be working for Squadron 42, the work over to Star Citizen will be greatly reduced, which means that drones in Star Citizen might not actually be that far away. And when I say that far, I mean like the next 18 months, okay? I don't mean this year or something. But we might actually see talk about drones starting up, I would say probably after this big kind of dense packet of gameplay we're looking at right now. Engineering, life support, bounty hunting V2, underground facilities, all that kind of stuff I think needs to be pushed out of the way, and then we'll probably start to hear more about drone stuff, maybe from the vehicle features team. But that's likely what's holding this one back a lot. Drones and repair and refuel, because this is also a refueling ship. As you can see here, there's a drone refueling of Eclipse and another one flying over here. And if I can find it super quickly, don't hold me to it, because I'm not sure if I ever saved this footage or not, but we have actually seen an early visualization of what, nope, I don't have it. Visualization of what it will look like for the drones to be leaving and arriving at this ship. Don't expect it anytime soon, but for the most part, this thing's probably being held up by the drones and the actual repair functionality that we still don't have in game. Worth buying Star Citizen? I would say not for everybody. It depends on what you're looking for, really, and if you enjoy a game that's not complete. It's not a scam, but it is definitely a frustrating experience to be a part of at times. It's going a lot slower than a lot of people would like. There are setbacks, there are delays, and there are huge roadblocks to making progress in certain places that they're trying to get figured out, but they're moving at the speed of the team of devs, and the team of devs are banging their heads against a hard wall. They've proven that they're getting through their problems. It just takes a while. And a lot of people don't really want to wait around for that. So for a lot of folks, the better answer is to wait, check back on this game every year, see how it's going, and jump in when you're ready. But there's no right or wrong single answer, I think. Should do a stream about ships with missing features. It's kind of what this is, right? Feels like every ship that we're going through is like, yep, that one's not working because of that. Thank you for the anniversary wishes. True, you can play for free right now. So that is pretty nice. If you wanted to jump into the game and see what it's like, you can play Star Citizen for free for, I think, the next 3 days. Oh, like ships in-game with missing features. Well, that'd be just about everything. All right. Where were we? The Expanse. The Expanse is a refinery ship that was introduced not too long ago, actually. I think this one was concepted last year. So I actually, announced March 2022. This is something that I expect to see pretty soon. There's not really anything holding this ship back besides refinery gameplay. And as we've been seeing in monthly reports, refinery gameplay is coming along. Now, there is something to be said about that, because we have fuel refineries like this thing. This thing does refining of fuel. I believe it's just fuel. No, it's probably going to be ore and fuel. So it really depends on what they mean by refining gameplay. But I do think that this is an important part of completing the mining game loop. Once we get this ship, you will be able to explore and find, mine, refine, transport, and sell a resource completely with your own ships, which would be the first time Star Citizen ever gets a full player run and player defined game loop. That's going to be a huge moment. And I think this ship is the key if they don't introduce some other ship for that beforehand. So this is not one that I expect to wait too long for. I'm really hoping that we start to hear more about it being introduced in the next couple of months, honestly. I would like to hear about this ship being developed and ready to release shortly after 4.0 happens. But we'll have to see. Again, nothing else I can think of holding this back other than actual refining gameplay. So keep an eye on that, and maybe we'll see this one soon after. After that, we've got the Nautilus, which was always kind of a weird addition in my eyes. This one caught me off guard for sure, and I don't know too many people who are super excited about this ship, to be honest. This is a mine-laying ship. This is like a combat prevention ship, the kind of thing that you would use more defensively maybe, or if you're locking down a group of resources and you're trying to bring in your expanses, your Orions and all your stuff, and you know you're going to be there for a couple days, you might bring in your Org Nautilus and lay a couple mines around so that they can shoot down ships that come near. This is really going to be a group play or an org gameplay kind of ship, probably a specialized one that people don't take out very often, and obviously one that is dependent on mines. Space mines, which I actually think might be on the tracker. So they got proximity mines. I actually don't know if these are referring to FPS or vehicle proximity mines. I think they're FPS proximity mines. Here's space mines down here. In space, players in certain ships will gain the ability to release different types of space mines in a coordinated fashion in an attempt to trap, damage, and capture enemies or set up direct defensive perimeters. So this is designed solely for Star Citizen. So not Squadron 42, which is interesting. And clearly is going to have plenty more work to do since it finished up here in Q2 of 2023 and we've heard nothing about it. But I don't know when or why they would drop the Nautilus in game. It needs mines. Do we need mines? Not yet. I think this would make more sense after other capital ships come in and they could see how people use them. But yeah. This one is less frustrating that they haven't made it and more frustrating that they introduced it, kind of like the Pioneer as well. Not saying it's a useless ship or anything, just one that I think would have been better introduced later on in development. They were just really trying to get some capital ships out there for the whales. All right. From the Nautilus, we go to the SRV. This is a ship that we know is in production. Has been waiting for tractor beams to become a thing in game, and since tractor beams are now becoming a thing in game, we can see that it is being built and probably released by the end of this year. It was held back by vehicle tractor beams, which we can see here are finishing up work, so that makes sense that we're getting this ship now. Mark that one off the backlog. Here's one that doesn't make much sense as to why we're not getting it. The Ranger is a series of space motorcycles. Because you need it. No, this is probably the smallest player carrying vehicle in the game. It kind of folds up really nicely and can fit in the back of a lot of ships. So this will be a good little vehicle, like a personal transport vehicle when we're doing a lot of on the ground gameplay. They've got 3 variants of it. One with more firepower, one with more cargo space, and one with more speed, as they like to do in different ships. We'll have to see how they use these. They seem like they're going to be very good fodder for NPCs to use on missions that you'll have to do like target practice with and stuff. We'll have to see how useful they are for players, though. This is something that you could say was held back by ground vehicle mechanics because they didn't have a model for two-wheeled vehicles to roll on the ground. Yeah. Obviously the counter argument is, couldn't you have just like kind of hacked together something out of the current vehicle system? It's a back and forth. I don't know if there's any other legitimate reason for this to not be in the game other than just they didn't have a modeled two-wheeled vehicle situation. And now that they're improving the ground vehicle driving mechanics in this new game, in this newest update, maybe we will see them start to work on two-wheeled vehicles as well. All right. And then we've got the variants of those, the Kraken and the variants of the Ranger as well for that year. Next up, Origin G12, another Origin vehicle that you're like, why? Why isn't this in game? This is a simple rover, much like your Cyclone. It drives fast, it goes vroom, and it's got cargo space. It's higher quality. It's a luxury vehicle, as they call them, even though it's got a turret on top. Luxury pew pew. But there's no real big reason for this to not be in game other than they just didn't go out and make the design for it and put it all together and slap it in game. We have four-wheeled vehicles, plenty of them. I'm hoping that this is one of the unannounced vehicles that they've got on the monthly reports, but we're going to have to wait and see. And like I said, the monthly report coming out this week and probably the one next month. I do hope they're working on these though, because no reason for them not to be in game. I think if you're ready, you got upgraded driving mechanics and you've got other rovers in the game, get this one in. Make it happen. That would knock off two of the variables from that year as well. Bring us down to just one thing introduced from 2020 that's not in game. So like there are definitely, they're on an edge here. If you exclude capital and large ships, they're on like a tipping point of really having a vast majority of the ships and stuff in game. Yeah, just fancy Cyclones. All right, from there we've got the Perseus. We talked about this one a little bit. Perseus is what's going to probably benefit from the Polaris getting worked on as the follow-up RSI ship of a similar length. I think it's actually a little bit smaller. 100 meters long, 50 meters wide, 20 meters tall. This is a pretty cool ship. I would like to be a crew on one of these ships at some point just because it looks so cool. I imagine the type of heavy combat missions you can take with this kind of ship involved would be different from what your normal player is used to. And I'm excited to see how they form together missions made specifically for capital class groups, you know? They have these gigantic missions that play out kind of like Xenothreat does right now, but they're just simple missions that you take, and if you take it in a smaller ship, obviously you get scraped. Take them in these kinds of ships and go out with a full group with support and all that stuff. Really exciting concept. So I look forward to seeing this one get made. But again, it's one in the backlog that really doesn't have any obvious reasons for being in the backlog other than it's a large RSI ship and they haven't made the design for it yet. And they could have started with this instead of the Polaris, but they started with the Polaris instead, probably just because they know more about it already. This one might get worked on afterward, but I wouldn't expect this for years. And again, this is one of those ones that weighs pretty heavy on the backlog. All right, up next is the Liberator, introduced in, what was that, 2021. And the Liberator is one that I think when they announced it, I was really expecting it to be something they wanted to bring in for 4.0 and Pyro. So this was first introduced at CitizenCon 2951, which was the first time they dropped Pyro into a demo and actually showed it to us. It wasn't the real Pyro, obviously, but they wanted us to start thinking about Pyro. So they also dropped in a ship that was all about transporting other small ships where they couldn't survive. Pyro is going to have a lot less space stations, so they need these sort of ferry ships that can carry your small ships around and not use all their fuel. Now, this doesn't have repair, refueling, and rearming facilities, but it does house facilities for guests and crew. So you might be able to log on and off from this ship. It won't be held back by those repair and refueling services, but it might also be held back by the same things that the Kraken is held back by. Logging on and off, storing your ship, calling your ship, making a ship stay on the ship and not glitching through the surface of it and blowing everybody up. I was hoping this is a ship that was going to be in by the time we got Pyro. And I don't know if they have plans for that still, but I would certainly like to hear about them. How long do I think we will wait for the release of the server meshing mechanics of construction? Server meshing mechanics of construction. You mean like base building? I do hope that they talk about this, because a lot of people are not going to be able to travel very far in Pyro if we don't have ways to carry those ships with something like this. And that was what I thought the whole point of introducing this was. No reason for this to not be in game, like I said, except for maybe the physics grids. Give me a second, sorry. There he is. Yeah, I don't think there's anything big besides the physics grid stuff to hold this one back, so I look forward to hearing from them about this. Maybe during the Ship Talk episode of during CitizenCon, they'll talk about it. All right. Let's see, from there we've got the Odyssey. Oh my gosh. All right. So the Star Citizen Odyssey is man, there's no telling when or why they would bring this one out. It would be just about the same as the Carrack. We didn't have any reason to get the Carrack when we did, other than they got it done. I don't know what would be holding this back. You could say exploration gameplay. That's like a long list of different things that don't necessarily have to do with exploration. So, deep space probing, maybe. But I don't even think they've talked about this thing having... I guess they all have probes if they're exploration ships. There's just nothing to tell us why we would get this. Yeah, there's the refinery on board. I don't think I mean, I guess, yeah, the refinery could be what frees us up of this ship. Maybe once they have the refinery working, they can just put it in as like a home base for mining missions. But it also feels like this ship would be missing some of that scanning gameplay that goes behind actually finding this stuff. Then again, the 400i was dropped in as an exploration ship without any sort of exploration. So yeah, maybe this is only dependent on refining gameplay as well. That'd be interesting. That being said, I imagine they'd probably go with the Expanse before they went with this one. But this is a beautiful ship. Oh my gosh. I wasn't crazy about it at first. I always say it really grew on me. And I don't know, it's something about this view. This part. The front third of this ship really comes off as this like majestic space odyssey sort of thing. I like it. So yeah, maybe this will be something that only is dependent on refining gameplay. But this actually wasn't introduced too long ago. This was, yeah, about almost 2 years ago now. This is, again, it's not too long in Star Citizen time. It's a pretty long time for most games, but it's going on 2 years. I don't expect this thing to be talked or worked on at all for a while. Not until well after the Polaris is done and they've gotten other ships. I think we won't see any other capital ships really serious in conversation until the Polaris is in game. What about the Titan exosuit? I don't know how to even approach that. This thing always reminds me of Prometheus. No, it looks nothing like it, but spiritually, I get that. All right, next ship is the Raylan, which we talked about already being blocked mainly by the fact that it is a large... it's a large ship from an alien manufacturer, which clearly hasn't been built out or designed yet. Hopefully the Santok Yai team moves on to this after they're done and they can start to figure out the design elements of this company. But, yeah, they just haven't put in the time for... It's another capital. It's not a capital ship. It's a large ship. But it's another big ship that they haven't put in the time to define the design. And we'll have to wait longer because of that. They've also got these special cargo pods back here that'll take custom design work. So, again, same old, same old. It's a big investment for something that probably isn't worth it yet given the gameplay that we have. But with some of these bigger gameplay systems coming in, it's probably looking more likely for them, and that's why they're kind of talking about it after the Santok Yai. But we'll have to see. Moving on to 2022, we've got the Galaxy, a modular ship. We talked briefly about this one already as well as a follow-up after the Polaris, so don't expect this to come or be talked about before the Polaris is in game, but this would benefit from the creation of that one. It also is going to have to rely a lot on modularity. And I'm guessing by the time the Polaris is in game, modularity will be existent in some way. Through maybe the Retaliator or something. But we don't know about that for sure. This thing's going to have a cargo bay, a medical bay, and a refinery that it can use. Obviously in that cargo bay you can store a ship, so you'll be able to have a smaller exploration ship in there. And ultimately it is labeled as a modular ship, though I take it as an exploration ship focusing on versatility. The Galaxy is capable of equipping its crew to handle any task in the verse. Feels mainly exploration focused, in my opinion, especially since you're getting the Carrack as a loner, but I guess the Carrack is also kind of multi-purpose, if you will. A solid ship. At this point, held behind by the fact that it doesn't, the other ships that came before it haven't been made. Is another large RSI ship sitting in the exact same bucket as the Polaris. Modularity wouldn't hold this back. They've introduced other modular ships. The gameplay wouldn't hold this back. It's got guns. It can fly around just like the 400i. Really, this thing is just waiting for the actual design, which comes with the other large RSI ships. This one's going to be a while as well. No excuse for that, but it is what it is. Legionnaire. Did that say the Legionnaire was introduced 2022, last year? Legionnaire is this cool looking little Halo mixed with Alien, mixed with honestly a little bit of StarCraft I'm getting. Little dropship, little space to space dropship. It's got docking capabilities through the front, and it's actually built with a hacking system so that you can force other ships to open. The way that docking is going to work is you can always request docking with the ship, but that ship can turn you down or allow you to join. The idea behind this is that no ship will be able to turn you down because you can hack into their systems, take them over, board their ship, all that jazz. This one is probably going to be in some way linked to hacking gameplay, but I don't know what's going on with hacking gameplay. The scheduled work finished up a while ago. It was a long sprint of work, and I know they had to change the design of hacking partway through, which is why it took so long. That might be coming sometime soon, maybe 4.0. It might not. They haven't talked about it very much, but the Legionnaire is probably not something that they're thinking about doing particularly soon. Because again, this seems like it's heavily based around capital ship gameplay and capital class combat. And until they get some capital ships into the game, ships like this and the Crucible and the Vulcan might not have enough pull to get the time they need. You know, like they might... You want to tackle the biggest fish that make the biggest difference, and if they don't know how capital class gameplay will work, these ships might not make as big a splash as if they was already working before they came in. And then finally the Spirit series, which we've talked about tonight a little bit already. The Spirit is basically done. We're seeing the Spirit come into the game in the next update. in a 3.20.x patch, both the A1 and the C1. Obviously, the C1 is blocked by nothing other than progress. The A1 is blocked by size 5 bombs, which they've been working on. And then there's also the E1, which is being blocked probably by passenger transport gameplay. So we'll see this one a little bit later. But the first two, the A1 and the C1, are indeed coming out. And after that on this list is just the UTV, which we know nothing about. It's kind of a sort of a leak, and we don't know what's going on with that. But that is the ship backlog. That's all of it. It was exhausting. God, I'm tired. But yeah, that is every ship that hasn't been introduced into the game, why it may not have, and how long we might have to wait for it. I hope this helps some people better picture or imagine what we're looking at in terms of the ship backlog. It's very much weighted towards these capital class and large size ships, and that's going to be the real struggle over the next several years, is watching those come to the game and seeing how much they're slowed down by other small ships. Maybe if they slow down on introducing small ships, we might see them get further on in those capital ships, but who knows? Either way, I hope that helped someone. Cheers to you all. Thanks for watching. Which ship has the ship-sized tractor beam turret? That's the SRV. That one's coming in pretty soon. Another ship being finished before older ones. The Spirit series? True, but we just went through all of the ships. Don't discount the last hour and a half of time we just spent figuring out why those ships aren't being made. I swear to God. We just put in the work, okay? There are ships here that they are working on that were clearly meant to, they need to be worked on. The Lynx, the Santok Yai, the X1, the SRV, they're getting worked on. We went through a lot of these other ones. The G12 is one that definitely we should see being worked on soon in order to make sense. But these other ones, there are reasons that they haven't been built at the same time as a Spirit C1, which just needs a cargo grid. You're pretty new. You were wondering about Squadron 42? What were you wondering about? Parjin. Also, welcome. I don't think they're going to wipe for 3.20. But they might. I don't know. Can I go over that again? Yeah, you got to sit here and watch the whole thing again. Still say we need to give a bunch of modders a crate of Mountain Dew and source code access and watch the entire game be done in like 2 days. This game would not be done with modders because modders need a completed game engine to mod. The game engine is not complete. You literally have to hire modders that know how to make the game engine before the company finishes it. Hope to see more passenger transport gameplay. Hopefully in an ISC soon. We saw it in CitizenCon 2 years ago, but I don't know. I don't know about that anymore. I would say pass on the Galaxy. You're wondering what has happened on the development of Squadron 42. It has been radio silence for a casual who looks at SC once in a while. It was supposed to have a closed beta 2 years ago. So as of right now, the best we know about is they are beginning to polish it in certain areas. Really the only information that comes out about Squadron anymore are the monthly reports. And in the monthly reports, they're talking about polishing certain parts of the game and bringing certain parts up to beta quality, likely so that they can start testing in the next 6 months or so. And when I say testing, I mean like beta testing. But we don't really know more than what we're seeing from monthly reports, and that stuff is not being told to us. It is being told to us, but we're drawing assumptions from that. Polishing, we assume, means going to beta soon, but that could be untrue. Most people seem to think that it will launch in the next 2 years, but that's literally every year is the next 2 years. So don't just douse that one in salt. Wonder if we ever see real ship modularity, a bit like what we have in Starfield. As far as you remember, this is something CR wanted for the game. I think they're going to be pretty much limited to each ship modules, packaged modules. How much would I speculate Squadron 42 will cost on release? 60? 60 bucks, makes sense? I think they fixed the exploits, and they did say if we fix the exploits, then a wipe could be done if they have not changed their mind. It's possible. We'll have to see. Bringing in community developers where it makes sense would be awesome. They do that. They actually hire from the community a lot when people prove that they have the tech to make the game work or make it better. Yeah, they bring them from the community. I know a few people who work for the company as developers who were just part of the community before. But again, they have to be people who are ready to jump into a new engine and make that game engine, not just people who have game experience and are able to make something in Unreal Engine or Unity or something. What do I think about people saying the game will be left behind because they won't be able to implement new ray tracing technology? They're building ray tracing into it. They actually already have a working prototype for ray tracing in Star Citizen. New standard for games is 70 bucks. Yeah, I thought those were console games though, or PC games going up to 70 bucks too? Just get Pyro out and all will be well. Something's gonna have to change with Pyro though, jeez. PC games are at 70 as well. Woohoo! Like PC only games is what I mean. Honestly, how many AAA games get made for PC only anymore? I don't think I play PC games enough to know that. What happens to past dev? Still working progress server meshing Pyro? Yeah, past devs are still working on that stuff. Baldur's Gate 3 was a AAA PC only game. It was 60 bucks? I mean, technically it did release as PC only, you're right. Oh, we can take that Nomad giveaway entry off. We actually have our winner, Lycos. If you are in chat, we're going to make announcements on Discord as well as on the YouTube channel and on Twitter. We'll let everybody know, but Lycos, if you are in chat, you did win August ship giveaway. BG3 is 60 bucks, but for PS4 and PS5 it's 70. Right, so that's what I was wondering, because console games seem to be demanding the $70 price point now, but it sounds like PC games can still release for $6. Just wasted 5,000 points. Let me see if I can take that off. That should be... Can a mod... oh gosh. Can a mod take that off the channel points redemption option, please? The Nomad giveaway entry. You need to remove that on there. Cut and paste a Stanton copy, add a cutscene for travel, change the pasted copy to look like Pyro, and boom, Pyro. There it is. Come on, CIG. Figure that out. Plenty of points to waste, so no worries. Yeah, I gotta find more ways for you guys to use up all your points. Alright, thank you, Drazen. Folks, that wraps things up. I was gonna get into game as well today, but we spent the whole time looking at the backlog of ships. So, you know, it's what you do, right? You get into the painful... Time flies when you're doing something painful. That's what I always like to say. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you got something out of it, learned a little bit of it, and maybe got a different perspective on the backlog or how it's looking. Honestly, outside of capital and large ships, I'm feeling better about it, especially with some of the ships that we're getting this year, and hopefully with the G12 working it seems like they're knocking some good things out. The big ships are worrying, though. It's going to take a while for us to get some of those, and hopefully they're not introducing too many more until we start getting more of those, at least until the end of next year. But who knows? Hope I'm enjoying Starfield. Having a good time with it. Thank you. I'm hoping I can get enough done to give all of you guys an update, a little review by the end of this month. I should have a video coming out about it later this week, though, talking about the exploration game loop around Starfield and kind of how to do exploration, ship builds, and getting down to planets and surveying planets and how to collect all the data and stuff. Should have a video out about that Wednesday or Thursday, so keep an eye out for that, and another Star Citizen video to follow after that. I have not heard any server meshing rumors, but I look forward to hopefully getting an update in the next month or two. Anyways, folks, once again, hope you got something from this show today, learned something new, saw something you liked, maybe something you didn't. No news on 4.0. Just the backlog stuff. Why am I not streaming Starfield? I just streamed Starfield a couple days ago. I'll probably stream it again later this week. But I'm always going to be dipping back and forth between certain ships or certain games and certain things every week. So we will get to Starfield at some point. Anyways, folks, have a good one. Love you all. Catch you later. Have a good week. See you tomorrow. Bye.